Hello everyone, welcome back to a brand new video. I'm Daggett, this is Daggett Designs, and in today's video we're going to be drawing a Japanese dragon half sleeve. After the last big tutorial we did on a koi fish half sleeve, a lot of people requested that I draw a Japanese dragon style half sleeve. So if you know you're going to love today's video, make sure you smash that like button for me, it really helps the channel out. And let's get straight into today's video by going to the overhead. Okay, welcome back to the table for another tutorial. In today's video, we're doing a half sleeve, as I said, and we're using the same template that we did last time. However, I flipped it the other way. So my trace template is on the back, and I've just flipped it around and traced it through with a mechanical pencil. This way I've always got the template handy. If you'd like to download the template, there'll be a link down in the description below. Along with this, we're also going to be using a mechanical pencil to sketch our design. You could just use a lead pencil or pretty much any sketching medium you'd like. And I've also got an eraser should we need it, and I'm assuming we will. So to start this one off, I'd like to just lay out all of the foundation shapes. When you're designing a sleeve or a half sleeve, it's important to map these details out. And you know, sometimes I'll even do a little thumbnail sketch, like a small size thumbnail sketch. This gives me a rough idea of where I want everything to go, and then I can map out the details later on. However, with this one, I have already mapped it out. So we're gonna go ahead and jump into it. I'm going to start by adding in the top of the dragon to this area. This is the top of the sleeve and the frontmost section of it. So we're going to go ahead and add in our dragon in this area. So I'm going to start by adding in a little circle like this, which will be the head of our dragon. And you can just add a little center line across that. It's going to be sort of a 3/4 angle view. And I might bring a line across the top just for where the eyes will sit as well. Now off the front of this and slightly up, we're just going to put a little ball shape in, something like that, with a couple of smaller ovals on either side of it. This will give us placement for our nose. You can come down to the bottom half of your circle here and add in an oval shape. This oval shape is just to tell you where the cheek will sit, and all of these things can be changed later on if necessary, so don't stress too much about it at this stage. Just above that little oval, I like to draw in a little triangular shape, like a curved triangle shape for where I want the ear to sit, and part of that ear will be obscured anyways. Now just above the ear, we're just going to do a little oval, and then just off this oval, we're actually going to do our horn. For now, I'm just going to put in this curved, almost like a banana shape, just coming back like that. And you can mirror this off the other side as well, just imagining where it's coming from on the other side, mirroring out these horn shapes. Now from here, you're going to come directly down and forward from your nose, like this, and put in another oval shape, like this. That will be for your bottom jaw there. And then you can just join up to the rest of the head with a little curved line like this. And this will give you the basic shape for your dragon head. You can pop in little ovals for the eyes as well, just underneath that line that we drew. One will be slightly further away from the line, and then the other one will be pretty much touching our line there. And again, you can play around and change these as necessary. So that will be the basic foundation for our dragon head there. Okay, now mapping out the body. We're going to do 2 sections of body in this one. Just to break it up a little bit, and this will give you a good starting point for drawing bodies. Dragon bodies are tremendously difficult to draw, so we're going to go ahead and just do a couple of sections of body on this one, and hopefully that gives you a good feel of how to do this. Now here's the thing, if you'd like to learn how to draw dragon bodies and you're struggling with the intricacies and some of the details, I have a brush set out right now. It's a digital brush set for use with IntroAide, and it comes with all these different tools, but the best tool that it comes with is a dragon and snake body drawing tool and a circle body tool. So these tools will allow you to basically map out the shape of your body in a really accurate manner, and one of the tools even tells you exactly where to put your belly scales and exactly where to put your spine. So this gives you a range of options in terms of learning how to draw dragons. It's available over on my website at daggettdesigns.com.au. So to actually start mapping in our body, we're going to use circles, and we're basically going to create a little spiral shape. So we're going to start just underneath the base of our head here, drawing in ovals or an oval shaped spiral. And as it comes just past the edge of the head here, it's going to turn more into circles and come up this way. So we're going to go ovals, widening more into circles as we come up, and the circles are going to get slightly larger as you come up, and they're going to keep going around almost to the back of the sleeve here. In fact, it might come out a little bit from our sleeve here, just like this, and then looping under and behind like that. And again, you'll just need to play around with this to get everything nice and consistent the way that you'd like it to be. Okay, now we're going to have some background elements flowing through the middle here, and then the body is going to continue. So to map out that section of the body, we're going to start circles right here at the bottom half of our half sleeve, like this. And we're going to bring those circles down, back up, and then we'll loop it around and back under itself again, like this. Okay, so we have this coming down and looping back under itself, and that'll be the two main sections of body that we'll be drawing for this design. Now, when I'm drawing a full dragon design like this, I don't always find it important to have every single claw on the dragon, unless it is just a full body dragon with no background. But you know, a lot of the dragon is obscured by our background features, and it's sort of mixed in with the sleeve, so you don't need to show all 4 of the claws all the time. So in this case, we're only going to be doing 1 of them. Most of the time I'll do 2 or 3 of them, but because this is a half sleeve design and I'm trying to keep it simple, we're just going to do 1 of the claws for now. So we're going to come down from this side of the body with a line like this, and I'll come down a bit further and I'll put in a little circle for our wrist section, and then tapering back up towards the body, getting a little bit wider, we can create like a forearm shape there. So for each individual finger, I'm going to come around that big circle. I'm going to dip in slightly towards the center, come back out, and draw another circle on the end of that for the end of our finger there. And you can pretty much follow this same pattern, coming in, back out, and into another circle. You can pretty much follow this pattern for all of your claws. Now, generally speaking, as far as I know, Japanese dragons will usually have 3 claws on each hand. So in this case, we're just doing 3 of these balls with the connecting lines. Now, at this point, I find it helpful just to outline the external shape of the body. You don't have to add any detail just yet. But in terms of getting the shape right and just making sure we know the size of everything, I like to just bring a little bit of a line around the outside of my body, just following the curvature of the lines that we've already put down. And this will help give a more accurate feel for our body. Now at this stage, before I continue adding details to the dragon, this is going to be similar to our koi fish tutorial we did last week, is I want to start adding in some of the background elements so that I can make changes to the dragon if necessary. So in this case, we're doing a dragon. This is going to be a sky dragon, so there's going to be wind bars and lightning and things like that. And I'm going to show you just how to draw a few of these elements. So we might start up in this area and add a big swirl of wind. So we'll just come up from the back here, bringing a curve up, and that'll come down and around on itself like this to create a spiral. And don't worry about going over the top of your body and your head there. We can go ahead and correct that later on. Once you've done this sort of spiral shape, you can go ahead and add clouds to the outside of that shape. So I'm just going to add in these little circular curves like this around the outside. And as I reach the top here, I'll just tape them down slightly and finish them off. Now from here, I want to have a large section of just plain clouds in front of our head here. And I spoke about this in last week's video as well. The reason I like to include large areas of plain subject matter where I've got, or plain background I should say, where I've got our main subject matter. So the head of our dragon is the most powerful and prominent area of our dragon here. The reason I'm going to do just plain clouds there is because they're going to be a dull grey colour, and that's really going to help push the dragon head out and forward, as opposed to maybe a darker and more detailed background. So I'm just filling in the areas near his head with just plain solid cloud shapes, like that. Now we are going to have a few bars sweeping across this one in a similar manner to how we do wave bars, but these will be wind bars. So we're going to bring these around from the bottom and move up in this direction. The wind is just rushing across in this direction. And I kind of like my wind to be really sporadic, so I try not to have it all flowing in one direction. I like wind to look a bit more crazy and chaotic, especially with a dragon character. You want it to look a little bit like a storm is happening. So I like to bring across the center of our body section here and across our arm here, or behind our arm here. I'm just going to bring a curved line up and across. And I'll split this off into two lines the same way that we did with our wave bars. So just separating that into two lines, like that. You can bring the front of this line around and across the body, whoops, around and across like this. And then just above that, we're gonna have another small bar. So you can make another gap by doubling up on your lines there and add in another small bar like that. Now we're gonna have sections of wind that fall beneath our body here. But before we do that, I wanna mark off the edge of my body using some clouds. So again, you're just adding in these small round shapes that basically make up your clouds. And you know, you can play around with them, get creative a little bit, add swirls in where you'd like them to be. But again, the reason I do this really is to help frame off areas of detail from the background. So light, fluffy sort of cloud areas are going to help make this stand out amongst all the chaos and heavy shading that's going on in the background. So I just try to have lighter areas of shading in those places. So again, just putting in some clouds at the bottom here, just by adding in these little shapes. And this will border off the end of our sleeve on this side. So those clouds at the bottom there. And then we might add another swirl into here just by bringing a line down and around like that. Now, I'll just make note here that I'm not adding any flowers to this design or cherry blossoms or leaves or something like that. And again, the reason for it is just the size and scaling of it. You could scatter cherry blossoms all through the design and that would look really cool, or you could put maple leaves all through it. You could just put a few maple leaves through it and that would look really nice. But I want to keep this nice and simple so that you guys can learn. Now we're going to follow our shape around here with our clouds from our swirl wind there, the little swirly bit of wind there. We just follow the shape around. And now we've got this little open area at the bottom here. So you can either put more clouds in there, or in this case, I'm just going to drop a couple more little bars sections in there. So there's not a lot to add in there, but I'll just add a couple more of those little bar sections in there. And then from this side, we can go ahead and add a couple more wind bars that just go up behind our design. So just adding in those separate lines and then curving them around like that. Now again, just above this section of the body and behind the claw is going to be quite a bit of detail. So I like to just go ahead and add in my clouds to these sections. Now I'm going to add some clouds to the underside of my jaw, coming around to the underside of the body here. And I don't know, how big the textures on my jaw are going to be, so I'm going to leave enough room underneath these clouds for a little bit more detail work there. But just bringing these details up and around the underside of the body. And I think out of this cloud here, I want to have a lightning bolt shooting out, and you can do a lot of different things with flames and lightning and that. We're going to have one that crosses over our body and just comes off the page at the bottom here. So I'm going to have this one coming out probably like this in this direction here. So just drawing in a straight line, and then I'll double up that line, just tapering it back slightly like this. And you're basically drawing in a large lightning bolt shape like this. And if you need to get a ruler out and do that, you can go ahead and do that now. Now once I've drawn in my lightning bolt shape, we've got a fair bit of background going on here and a little bit around the top there. So we've just got this section of background to fill in here before we can start working on our actual dragon illustration. So another couple of wind bars won't hurt. We'll just drop another one in here, doubling up on our line, curving that back, doubling up on our line again, and curving that back like that. And in fact, I think I want to have some little clouds coming along the edge of our bar there. So we can just have that coming around. So now we're going to go ahead and start talking about detail on our dragon, but I hope this gives you a good idea of how I plan backgrounds out. So a lot of people ask me, generally speaking, how do you draw a dragon and how do you draw a koi fish? But I get a lot of questions asking me, how do you incorporate these elements? So a lot of you have learned to draw these individual elements of design, the main subject matter of a lot of designs, but you're really unsure of how to put them together. So I hope this gives you a good idea of the way that I put them together into a design. Alright, now to start looking at some of the details for our dragon head here. Normally what I like to do is start with either the eyes or the nose. So I'm just going to strengthen up the ovals of our eye a little bit here, make them a little bit clearer where they're sitting. And we can go ahead and start adding in the eyebrow ridges. So we're just going to bring a line forward and around the top of our eye, cutting off the top of our eye, and then flicking back up. And then off the back of this, we can add in our little spikes. And these are just like little curved peaks like this. Now off the center of this, off the next part of this one, I'm going to draw a little curve like this and another little curve next to it. So sort of a little double W shape. And I can bring that back and around as well, just matching the first one that we did. And then for the other eye, we're just going to bring a loop down that cuts off the top of the eye and comes back up just slightly past the edge of the eye there. And then you can go ahead and put in your little eyebrow spikes as well on this side. On the right hand side eye, I like to just add this little lip underneath the eye, which is just a little fold in the skin. From here, if you'd like to, you can add your pupil shapes in. I'll just do a big circle and a little circle on the inside. And the same for the other eye. A bigger circle with a little circle on the inside for our pupils there. So now working on our nose, it's going to be, just draw a line across here where it's flat. This gives you a really good sense of where our direction is for this one. Now coming from the underside of our biggest circle here, which is our little curve here, I'm going to bring a line up and back, and I'll just block out the end of that line a little bit so it's like a little nostril shape. And you can bring that up the other side as well. Then you can draw in a little wiggly line that comes up and around for your front nostril there. You can do a similar shape on the other side, slightly less visible. And then this is where it gets a bit tricky, and you'll have to play around with this a little bit, is you're going to draw in the top shape of your nose. So there's not really a way to describe how I do this bit because it changes every time I draw dragons. But essentially you're going to bring a line up for the top of the nose, the top part of the nose, and then sort of waver it down and back onto the face. That's the best sort of description I can give for how I draw that section of the nose. That's probably the section of the nose that I've always had the most trouble with and takes the most practice in my opinion. Now to link up the nose to our eyebrow ridge there, you're pretty much going to do a big W curve. So just bringing a line that dips in and under, and then back out towards the eyebrow ridge. So there should be this little knobbly bit just under the eyebrow ridge. It should dip in and then come back out. Now to connect up the eye on the other side, you can just draw a little line just underneath the eye to represent the cheek area there on the other side of the face. Now from here, I just want to map out where our whiskers will be. So I'm just going to come off the end of our nose line, that top line of the nose we drew, come down a little bit, and then I'm going to bring a line like forward like this, just a wavy line that comes forward. And if you'd like to at this point, you can double up on that line for your whisker. Now from the underside of the nose, you can just bring a line out and around either side of your nose, like a little mustache shape that will sort of border off the bottom of the nose there. And then you can go in actually putting in his mustache. So I just leave a little gap and then start adding in his little spikes here for his mustache. And you just bring them up and around to where the whisker starts. To do the other side, you just do the same thing. sort of going in the opposite direction. Okay, so from here to do the inside of the bottom part of the mouth, this gets a little bit tricky, but we're going to follow our shape around for our bottom lip. That's going to dip down the side of our oval there, and then we're just going to bring that up and behind our whisker there, and this will give us sort of the bottom portion of our mouth. You can drop in a little tooth in there if you'd like. You can drop in a few teeth wherever you'd like them to sit, and in between those two front teeth I just do a whole bunch of small teeth by adding these little just little curve shapes like that. I like to have the tongue folded back on itself slightly, so just bringing that shape up and around. And then you can bring the edge of the tongue back up into the mouth with a long S curve, and then doubling up on that line for the center of the tongue. Just like that. And that will give you your sort of folded back tongue shape on the inside of the mouth. The bottom line that we drew, I just want to double up on that to give us a bottom lip. Like this. Now the design's probably looking a bit top heavy. That's because we have to draw in our bottom whiskers here. So we're going to come in to the outer side here first and just start adding in our whisker shapes or our beard shapes like this. So it's going to be the same way you did your mustache basically, and just coming around. Now I find it helps to start at the bottom of your oval. However, if you didn't draw your oval big enough, you'll end up with a bit of a size gap. So just following along the shape that you drew for the bottom jaw, and if it's not big enough, coming off that line a little bit will help. Now I'm pretty much bringing these spikes all the way back around the cheek here, so around that oval that we drew for our cheek, and this is where you can start to make them a little bit bigger and a little bit more prominent if you'd like to. So I like to make them a fair bit larger at this stage, coming around the cheek there. Now to create the rest of our mouth, you're pretty much going to follow a line down from where you ended the bottom half of the mouth. And I like to come down into a curve like this, out again, and then sort of recurve down like that. So it's like an M curve that turns into a little S curve at the end there. Now off the very end of that, you can add in a large tooth, just by adding in a big curved peak, and then coming forward with a couple of smaller teeth wherever you'd like them to sit. Now pretty much the last little section I'll do on the bottom half of the face here is to come up behind our whiskers and just add in a couple of little lines that come up towards the front of the face, these little curve lines, and that is to give you a little bit of a cheek, and you can play around with them as well. To draw in the shape for your ear, you're going to follow the top line of your little triangle shape here, rounding off the end, and then just bringing it back down, so you're pretty much just following your shape. Then I'll add in this top line that loops back around at the end there, and adding these little curves to the inside of the ear. That is kind of that soft fleshy part on the inside. Now we're going to draw in this horn, complete the top of the head, and then draw in the other horn. Basically the way we do that is border off the bottom of your horn using a few curves like this. Then you can bring them up into your horn shape. I like to add in this secondary spike at the front, so just adding in a little curve at the front like that, and then coming up to the back of your horn shape. And then you can pretty much just bring that back down. I like to add a bit of roughness and texture to our line just by adding a little bit of variance to the line, make it look a little bit rough. And then in terms of texturing this, we're going to do this later on using our markers, but you can go ahead and just add in a few lines so you know where the texture is going to sit. So that will be for the horns. And for the top of the head, basically what we're going to do is come up from the eyebrow section, and I'm basically going to do these wavy lines that go back and around the head like this, and this is to give the top of the head a bit of a rough texture. And that is basically it in terms of drawing in the head of the dragon, and that's sort of one of the more difficult parts of this design. There's a big amount of detail in the head. Now coming down to do our claw, let's start with the line that comes off the back of the thumb here and bring it back up the forearm. So we're just bringing a smooth line out like this, and then I'll do a similar wavy texture to the top of the head to give it a little bit more shape and a little bit, something to it. We'll just keep this smooth for now on this side. Same with the top of our claws. So we're going to bring around the front of the middle finger, bring a line around, stopping about halfway up the side of our circle here. Then you can put in a W curve or an M curve towards the ball at the hand there. I'll put another little W curve in towards our thumb shape there. And I'll loop our thumb around and connect it up as well, just using those M shapes on the inside of the hand there. Now I did find that this one is a little bit too far from the hand where I'd like it to sit. So I'll bring it back just a little bit, like that. That's better. And for the other claw, you're basically doing the same thing, following your line around to about halfway on the circle and adding in your curves, like this. Now to add in your claws or your talons, for the thumb side, we're actually going to be seeing the front of the claw. So I'll just cut off a little bit of our circle and drop in our claw shape, which is just like a curved peak, like this. For the front area on this one, you're not going to see where it comes out of the finger. So just drawing in a curved peak off that side, like this. And same goes for this one. You're not really going to see where it comes out on the finger there. Now basically you're going to add this scaly pattern to the top of each of your finger areas here. So just coming across the top of our thumb and bringing that down the back of the thumb onto our hand there. Off the front one here, we're going to have it coming like this. And then you can bring those curves back. And when you get to this wrist area, you're going to widen them and actually bring them all the way up the length of the arm there. And that's like the plating on the outside of the arm. And you can do the same thing on this finger here, just coming back to the hand. Now the last thing you need to do to complete this is to join up all of your plates with a bit of a texture. So I like to just add a dip in between them instead of a curve to connect them up. Okay, so now that you've got most of your design sort of in there, we've done the head and all of its details, and we've done the claw and the details. The next part we've got to work on is the body, and this is arguably the most difficult part of drawing dragons. I think it's the most difficult part, which is why I developed the brush set, hopefully to help people learn how to draw dragon bodies a little bit better. I find them really difficult to draw myself, but I'm going to go ahead and try to show you the best way I know how. So to help me do this, I've got a couple of other pencils. I've got a red pencil and a blue pencil. You don't have to use different colors. You can just stick with your mechanical pencil, and in which case most of the time I will. However, this is going to help illustrate some of the points more clearly. Now, most of your body sections are going to be very similar, so I'm going to start off with this top section and run you through how we're going to do it. So we've got this top line of our body running across here. We're going to have a spine of our dragon coming up and around, and it's going to show some belly as well looping around. So let's bring this line up and we'll bring it out and around to this line like this, and then we'll follow that around the bottom side as well, just coming down and around. This is going to give you the space for your belly scales, and that would loop around and cut off at about there. So you've got this section of belly here showing, and that cuts off into the main part of the body where the scales will sit. And then the belly starts to show a little bit again and actually becomes the more prominent area at the front here. This of course follows along so you can see the belly more. So this whole area is belly, and this area again is the back of the dragon there. And we can just bring that line around for the time being. Now to draw in the spine section, you want this to be directly opposite to the center of your belly. So you can go ahead and draw in sort of a central line to your belly, which is going to follow up and around the back of your dragon here. So the spine is going to be opposite here. So it will start right at the base of the head, and it will become more and more visible the less belly we see. So at this point we're seeing less belly. We're going to start to see a bit more of the spine here, and that's going to come up. As the belly starts to show again, the spine's going to disappear over the back of our dragon here, like this. So we're only seeing a little bit of our spine there. And at this point, if you'd like to, you can add in the little spikes for your spine. There's many different ways to do them. I just want to do these little rough spine shapes for this one. So just going in and adding in some little spikes for your spine there. To add in your belly shape, you're basically going to follow the circles that you drew in adding in lines for your belly, and you want these to be sort of equally spaced. You don't want them to all be different sizes in terms of the spacing in between each ridge. And then coming down the other side, you're going to start seeing a little bit of the belly protruding from here. So coming around like this. They are going to shrink a little bit on this side because that's where the curve is. So these plates are actually sort of overlapping each other. Then they'll get a bit more evenly spaced. And then they'll start to get wider on this side as the curve gets tighter over here. As we come back to loop under the body there. So that will give you the basic sort of shape for your belly. And that's how you can sort of see that the body starts to come together a little bit. Now at this point, if you'd like to, you can curve the ends of your belly scales. So just adding in curves that will connect your belly scales. Again, there's a lot of different ways to do this. You can leave them flat, and I've seen that done many times. Another way that you can do it, which is quite popular, is to intersect the scales with the belly scales, and that would be the more realistic approach. I don't like to do this. I find it more difficult, and more difficult is not always better. There's not always more gain from it. Yeah, it is slightly more realistic, but it's pretty rare that I see traditional designs using that sort of style where the scales interlock with the belly. Normally it's a bit simpler than that, and I'm a big one for traditional designs. I like the way that they look more than anything. Now once you've curved off all of your belly scales, we can go ahead and start adding in the actual scales on the sides of the body and the top of the body there, and that's where we're going to use the colored pencils. So I'm going to start off by adding in my blue lines. These are the lines that follow the spine shape of your body in equal proportions. So there's going to be one block following your spine to start with. So we'll come up one side of our spine shape here, just following it up and around the body there where the spine disappears. And on the other side of the spine, you're going to have that same sort of block line coming up. So between those two lines is one section that's following our spine here. Okay, and it's important that you get these parts really accurate. The next line you're going to have is going to come from the front of the body again and follow along. You want this to be a similar width to the first one. They can taper down slightly where the areas of the design get thinner, so the body's thicker here and tapers down to the head, so your lines will also taper. But you want to try and reach the same thickness between these two lines and these two lines, bringing that up and over your body as well, just following the curvature and shape of your body around. And then there's going to be one more that follows the belly scales, comes up the side of the body here, and literally follows your belly scales all the way around. Now here's an important thing to note. So the gap from this line to this line is a little bit too big. I want to bring that up a little bit, like this. And now there's this awkward space between this blue line that I just drew and the belly scales. What that means is I haven't drawn my belly scales or my belly plates high enough. So I'm just going to erase them a little bit and try to bring them a little bit closer to that blue line. It's not paramount to get this perfect, but generally speaking, if your blue line is too far away from your belly there, probably your scales are going to be not close enough on this section. They're not going to be small enough on this section, and your belly's not coming up high enough. So I just bring the belly scales up a little bit more for that area. Now, of course, you're going to have a bit of blue on this underside of the body here. So I just come from that part where it intersects and split that off into two. That depends how much of this part of the body you're going to see. In this case, we're just going to have these two blocks splitting it up. Now, coming in with my red pencil. By the way, like I said, you can do this with just the gray pencils if it's easier and quicker. However, I do recommend using the blue and the red pencils when you're first learning this. It makes this method a whole lot easier. So first, what you're going to do is follow the lines of your belly scales up to the spine in a curved fashion. So following the curvature of the body of your dragon up to the spine from your belly scales. And then you're imagining the belly scales as you come along the body here like this. And then again, you're following off the belly scales to come around like this. Okay. For the outside of the body, you're going to curve back down in the opposite direction as though we're wrapping the body up. So you've got these red lines that follow the contours around the body. So these are coming down and around, and those are going down and around to give you the contours. And this is going to give you that sort of three-dimensional shape. You can do the same thing for these lines on the bottom half of our body here. They don't have to follow the belly scales exactly, and sometimes I won't, depending how big I want them to be, but I do find it helps split them up a little bit. Now at this point, the way we're going to break up the scales is by filling in these boxes up from a corner to center and back down to a corner. So I'm going to start with this first row at the bottom here so you can see what I'm talking about. We're going to come up to the center of our box and back down to the corner. From the corner up to the center and back down to the corner. Up to center, back down to the corner. And you're just going to continue filling this row, this first row up in that manner. Once you've filled up that first row, you can move up to the next row and do the exact same thing, coming up to center and back down to the corner. Now, as you're doing these, they might look a little bit angular, and that's okay. Like, I like a little bit of an angular shape to my scales, but if you want to, you can go ahead and smooth out the top, that top corner of your scale a little bit when it hits center, so you can round them off a little bit. I like to keep a little bit of an angle to them and sort of round them off just slightly. Now, before we jump into the next part of filling in the scales near the spine here, we're going to connect up all these scales, and this is where the scales really come together. So at this point, it looks like we've got all these M shapes, and that's it. However, now what we're going to do is go from the center of a box to the corner and back to center. So we're starting at the center of one scale, coming up to the corner, and going back to center. And you're going to do this up your next row. And after the first 2 or 3 shapes, you should start to see how this forms your rows of scales. Now, in my opinion, this gives you the most accurate scales. This may not be the most traditional way to do it. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's not. However, I think this gives you really nice curvature to the body and gives you some fairly realistic scales while still being easy enough to grasp the method of and not making it too complicated. And now for this bottom section here, I'm just coming from center basically right up to the line on the corner of each box to complete the scales on the bottom side there. Now, drawing in the spine scales is pretty straightforward. You're doing the same method that you did, coming up to the center of your box and then back down to the corner. But because there's a spine in the middle, you're just doing it on either side of your spine plates there, coming up to center. Now we've got that M shape again. We can link them up by going from center to corner and back down to center, center to corner, back down to center, and repeating that process to create your scale pattern. Like that. Now, once you've filled in all of your scale pattern using this method, you can go ahead and strengthen your spine up so that it stands out a little bit more, just making it a little bit easier. I leave it a bit lighter while we're doing the scales just to help clarify things a little bit. We can sort of work behind those areas. Now, this part of the body is going to come up and be quite smooth along the transition there. And then for this section, we're going to split this up into 2 little parts. So I'll just erase a little bit so you can see a bit better. We're going to come down from the spine to our first blue line here, like that. and then I'll just come out again to the rest of the body, so splitting that up into two little segments. Now at this point, something that some people like to do is split up their belly plating a little bit. So coming in with a center line like this, and then go to the center line with your curve, and then curve back out like this, and curve back out. This will give your belly plating a really defined shape, and it helps separate things a little bit, and it makes them look less flat, so it makes it look less like a train track. Just adds like a little V shape to the middle of each belly plate, and I think it looks quite nice. So now that you know how to transform this awkward looking sausage shape into a dragon body with belly scales and body scales there, or belly plates, body scales, and our spine, you can go ahead and repeat that process on the bottom section here. Now, don't stress too much. It's going to be quite easy. You're following the exact same shape for this loop in the body here. The only part that will differ is the front section of the body here. So your spine basically is going to come down on a central line like this. You'll loop up to the top of your body and across the top like that, coming down behind your claw. And then this will be the side of your body, and it will loop around into your belly, and your belly scales will come down and around underneath the body like this. So this area will be your belly scales, and that will be your spine. Now that you've done the belly scales and the body scales for the bottom portion of your body, you can see how this brings together a nice flowing dragon body. And that's basically it for how to sketch out your design. I'm going to go ahead and transfer this over to some watercolor paper using my light pad. If you don't have a light pad, I highly recommend you get one. Otherwise, you can just take your design up to a window and trace it through that. I will just quickly mention that the class notes for this one will be available in the class notes folder of YouTube memberships for my channel. So if you're not a member of my channel, but you'd like to support me and at the same time get some great perks, make sure to go to my channel and sign up. There'll be a link in the description for that. To transfer this over to watercolor paper, I'll be using some pigment liners and a mechanical pencil. So I'll be using a Staedtler pigment liner in a 1.2 size for the sort of large bold areas of the design. I've got a 0.5 size pigment liner for the smaller areas of design, including the scales. And I've also got a 0.1, this is an art line drawing system, but it's just a pigment liner in a 0.1. And I'm not sure what I'll use that for yet. I may not even get around to using it. That's a really fine line. And then I'm also going to use my mechanical pencil to block out my wind bars, as they're going to be shaded over and the pencil erased, just like we did in the last koi fish half sleeve video. And that's pretty much it for this one, guys. So next week we're going to be painting this half sleeve design. I really hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you requested this one, I hope I answered your questions and you learned something today. Other than that, I'll see you guys in next week's video. Have a good one. Bye bye. If you like the content that I make and you'd like to support the channel, make sure you smash that like button. And hey, while you're at it, check out one of these other great videos.